QolorTOPIX Light Conversations podcast series by City Theatrical features some of the most unique lighting professionals in the entertainment lighting business. QolorTOPIX conversations range from every sector of light, from film and video to television, theater, dance, music, themed entertainment, art, architecture, and more. QolorTOPIX is hosted by the City Theatrical Marketing team. The podcast series will explore the lives of amazing practitioners of light with the goal of discussing their careers, projects, favorite tools, and vision for the future of the lighting industry. Hello and welcome to QolorTOPIX, City Theatrical's podcast series. My name is Jackie Moriali and I am representing the City Theatrical Marketing team. I am joined today by Reza Behjat, who has recently made his Broadway debut as lighting designer for English at the Todd Haynes Theater. To start, Reza, can you tell us a bit about yourself?
Hi, thank you so much for having me. My name is Reza Behjat. I was born in Iran, Urumiyeh. It's a city in northwest of Iran where my parents still live. But I lived in Tehran, the capital of Iran, for 7-8 years before moving to the States.
And where do you currently live?
I live in Brooklyn. I moved here to New York in 2014, and since then, New York is home.
How many years of experience do you have in lighting?
I started doing lighting back in home in Iran. I was in directing program for my undergrad and master in Iran. For every show that I was doing, I had to beg someone, can you please come do the lighting for me? So I started just doing my shows, and then people started reaching out to me. And then I came to this realization that being as a designer gives you more opportunity to work with a lot of other collaborators and having more experiences and doing a variety of shows. So I slowly started opening myself up to the market as a lighting designer, and people started reaching out to me more and more. And I felt this is my path as an artist in theater. And that's how it started.
Where did you get your undergrad and master's?
I went to NYU here. That's how I came to the States. I did MFA at NYU 2014 through 2017. And before that, my master in Iran was, I think, in 2006 to 2008. And undergrad was 2004 to 2008. So my master in Iran was University of Art, one of the major universities for theater and film in Iran. And before that, Azad University was my undergrad.
Since 2006, are there any favorite shows or projects that you've worked on?
Many. It's hard to pick, especially those that really stays with you and you feel like it resonates with you and reaches so many audience. Before moving to the States, there were a couple shows that I'm still really proud of it. I think a lot of people, when they see the photos of that show, or they remember that I did that before I moved from Iran, they still think of that show. And one of them was Wojciech by Buchner, the German playwright, and we did it in Iran. And working in Iran is very different. Making theater is very different. But for that show, it was a very long and eventful process. But finally, we made it to stage, and it really changed all of us, all of our lives in that company. Many of us after that show, we started our career, and our other designers became very well known and busy in Iran. Same with directors. I really enjoyed working on that show and some other things, but that one I think was a milestone in my career in Iran. And then there were some other shows that I did there that we were trying to be very inventive. One of the show I did, but we had a pool of water. The entire stage was water. And so I had to come up with some sort of solution. I wish we had City Theatrical in Iran to create waterproof lights. We made custom-made lights. We buried them in the water so no one could see it, but there were some moments that they were blasting through the water. So that felt very fun show to work.
It sounds amazing.
And then, of course, my favorite show in the States, English, is a show that is not only close to home to me and close to my heart, but also, again, opened up so many doors for me in my career. And I feel like this show will stay as my very favorite shows.
Amazing. So speaking of English, the play, and speaking of learning English, the language, are there any other languages that you speak?
I grew up trilingual. I speak Turkish and Kurdish because my parents, they both speak both languages. And I grew up in Northwest that it's very common for people to speak those three languages. And Farsi is the official language of Iran. So those three languages I grew up with. And then I started learning English. In high school, we picked up some English classes. And then before coming to the state, I had to pass some English course exams. I'm learning Spanish now. I don't know how it goes, but I'm really optimistic that one day I can communicate in Spanish.
I'm convinced if you have four languages down pat, you can learn Spanish, no problem, or any other language you set your mind to. Do you have any hidden talents?
I think it's very interesting if you're not a one dimension person. I always like to learn something. I love theater, but I also do street photography, which to me, a different type of storytelling from a different perspective. So I think I'm an okay street photographer. I never took it as a career, but I shot for some magazines and some photo agencies as a photojournalist. But I feel like that is a little talent that I have there. I'm very good with animals. I think, especially with cats, I can really get connected with cats right away.
Have you ever taken any photos of cats? It sounds like it would be a craze on social media.
Many. My cat Mercury has so many portraits.
Sounds amazing. Are you inspired by street life in New York City or in any other places around the world? What kind of inspires you in your photography and your art?
1000%. I'm a city person. Even before moving to New York City, I was living in Tehran, and it's the same vibe, the chaos that we love, and the energy is there. So I really get inspired by this liveliness of big cities, and I feel like not only just from lighting perspective, just from a big world of so many people that they live in these big cities, and you as a photographer or a storyteller, you want to focus on one person and try to see what they're doing, what is their history. I feel like I'm stuck in something, I cannot move forward in something that I'm creating. I always just go outside, pick up my camera, and just walk around the block to clear my head and maybe shoot something or maybe don't, but just walking in the street has really opened my mind.
So while we're talking about street art and life in New York City, and you said you live in Brooklyn,
Yeah.
do you have a favorite food?
Ooh, favorite food. I love Mexican food a lot. Love ramen a lot. I think one of the great thing about being in a city like New York is that you have access to a variety of different food, which is amazing.
Do you have a favorite place to eat in Brooklyn? Is there a great restaurant in your neighborhood or close to your theater?
Yeah, I mean, there's a German bar next to BAM. It's called Black Forest. Me and my partner, we go there a lot. I'm vegetarian. They have a good option of like a veggie version of German sausage or burger. I love that spot. We go there a lot.
Interesting. I'll have to try it. Do you have a favorite place to create?
Besides streets, I think my studio is the safe place for me. When I come to the studio, I'm so grateful that I can have a space that I can shut everything behind me and be in a space and, think about what I'm going to do, either a show or, I don't know, photo, whatever. It's just a place that isolates me from the rest of the world.
And while you're in your studio, do you have a favorite lighting tool?
I'm a little old school in the studio lighting. When I want to look at something, color palette or a fabric sample or something, I'm a big fan of Roscoe's LED swatch book. It's really handy. You can look at different colors or, I don't know, compare some stuff together. So that's my favorite thing in the studio.
I agree. So it sounds like you have a very hands-on approach.
That's right. Yeah.
So speaking of hands-on, right, your most recent play, English, do you have a favorite scene from the play?
Yes, a lot of scenes are my favorite. Part of it because I sat in one of those classes to learn English. I took the similar exam. I struggled. All of them feel very, very familiar. But one of my favorite scenes is a transition that we're doing from a scene that calling it office hours. From office hour, it's like Friday evening going into Monday morning, afternoon, early afternoon, and the transition that everything together synced so beautifully, and the harmony of scenery, acting, music, lighting, it's just so satisfying that every time we run it, I almost cry.
Oh, how incredible. Wow. Okay, so if we were to dig a little deeper on your design for English, how would we describe that feeling that you get in that scene in 3 words?
Cinematic, simple, but complicated. This
Somehow
is
I
4 words,
understand
but
what you mean, simple but
yeah.
complicated. I understand what you mean. So the play in general is about a group of individuals who are learning English for the first time and are taking the TOEFL exam. Is that right?
That's correct.
So this is very similar to your experience when you moved to the States and took the same exam, so you can actually feel the words behind what the actors are saying and what they're experiencing. Did that
100%.
affect your design for the show?
I think knowing the location, the classrooms are, you would think that, oh, it's a classroom, but because I know there's so many private English or other language institutions in Iran, and some of them they don't necessarily have a regular school architecture sort of vibe. Some of them are old houses or like residential buildings that change the functionality to classrooms. So what is really very niche about this classroom that you would find a piece of architecture doesn't belong to this building, but it's there and there's no reason for that. In early process for the off-Broadway run, naturally I was leading the research process because again, my firsthand experience with the story. And I asked many friends who were in Iran to send me more photos of the classroom. So I think that was a great starting point for the designers to look at something a little bit differently just than a typical classroom.
It sounds like a very collaborative creative process. How was it working with the scenic designer and the other designers and creative teams behind the show?
It's been incredible. Honestly, it's like a dream team. Shout out to Knut Adams, our director, and Marsha Ginsberg, Sinan, and Enver, our sound and costume designers. But for us, me, Knut, and Marsha, we have been working very closely to each other because, spoiler alert, but this show has a turntable and we have almost 23, 24 scenes, and the turntables move almost every scene, even internal as the scene is happening. We have some scenes that are moving. So for both off Broadway and Broadway run, and with Marsha and I, we have had many long conversations to make sure that as we're keeping the integrity of the look of each scene, but also making sure that other departments are fine and also giving space for other departments to have a moment in the storytelling, especially in the transition. So I really enjoy that level of collaboration and perfectionism that we all share.
Wow. So I think I understand a little bit more what you mean in terms of simple but complex when we're talking about a turntable for 23 scenes. What were some of the unique lighting challenges behind the play?
Absolutely. It's an inside joke between me and my two head of electricians for both off Broadway and Broadway run. The first time they saw the plot, literally the reaction was, "That's it. You don't need more lights than this." And I said that you cannot put more than this on this plot because there's no room. There's a full ceiling, one block wall, and one window wall, and so you have only two openings to light the scene. So it's very specific where you put those lights because you can either no backlight, there's no side lights per se, or typical lighting angles that you use for lighting a show. Definitely the first challenge was making sure that every light, every position is very specific. You cannot go beyond a certain height because there's a ceiling there and you cannot be too low because it's going to look weird. So that was the first challenge. And the other challenge, I think, was, as I mentioned, when the turntable moves in a scene. I mean, the transitions are beautiful and fine. You can change the look of it because this scene is not happening, going from a different time to another time, a day, different day. So it makes sense to change the look of its scene. But when a shift is happening inside, it's very complex, collaborative between me, the automation, my programmer to figure out how we're keeping the scene is lit balancedly as the turntable is shifting. So it's been really rewarding process, but also very complex because all of our cues are like so many parts and delay, what is coming in, what speed is turntable is starting to move, what is the acceleration and deacceleration. But there's just been so many layers into that, which is fascinating. But I don't think, if you watch it, you feel like, oh, the turntable spins, it's okay, and the scene is still happening. But when you understand that it's how difficult it is to keep that look as the turntable moves like 100 degree.
It sounds like an incredible show. We all have to go run out and see it at the Todd Haynes Theater. Sounds like a very specific plot and set for this show. Are there any key learnings from English that you can take forward to future plays and other projects?
Absolutely. Me and Knud and Marshall, we are obsessed with sodium vapor light. We feel like there's a very specific color temperature of color quality into this that you cannot replicate with a gel. I know all of the great lighting companies, they have equivalent to sodium vapor, but maybe the tint is the same, but the effect that it does on skin tone, on any color, you cannot make that. So for this show, we have two incredible custom low pressure sodium vapor, to be very specific, because the color is very specific. As many lighting people know, this arc bulb, they just pop, they don't fade the way we like in theater to fade in, fade out. So the challenge was, we don't want to abruptly bring the light, and those light needs like 5 minutes or so to warm up before they make a full like visibility. Shout out to a German lighting designer, I think in the 80s, he made a prototype for his show, Max Clare, that he has a very famous book. So I was looking at that, I was like, okay, we need to make something similar. And then I reached out to a friend, a collaborator, Kent. He built this sodium vapor lighting for us. And I think it's one of the most gorgeous things that you see in this show. Learning curve, definitely. When we did it on off Broadway, I only have 4 moving lights. And magically, both productions, the number of instruments are active in the show so magically and randomly. They're 88, between 88 to 90. So that's quite why everything is so specific in this show. So I always joke that, okay, if I had like 16 moving lights, I could have lit the entire show on off Broadway. But then when we moved to the Broadway house, that was the first thing that I cannot use any conventional, because the turntable is moving. And throughout the process, everyday tech, everyday preview, Knud wanted to, let's move this scene 2 degree back, 2 degree in, and it's impossible to refocus that many lights. So that's why 95% of the gear is moving light. And I learned a lot. I always work with moving light. Specifically for this show, I learned how to use a better moving light, or what I could have done better for, next project. We're always learning. And I've learned a lot about a flying ladder, and when you're flying a lighting, especially a moving light that is heavy and it comes in, you would need a stabilizer. It's called light lock. It's a great accessory that we're using in this show. Also, I learned a lot about how to use them, because some of them are not very quiet, and this show is a very quiet show. Learning how to balance all of this, component, it's been a journey, but I think we did it. And today we froze the show. Actually, today is it was our last tech day.
Congratulations. And this show has actually won its share of awards already. Isn't that right?
That's right. Yeah, I got Obie Award for English and Wish You Were Here, Sanaz's other play that we did in the same year, back to back. I got the design award category.
Congratulations.
Thank
Yes.
you.
And English as a play itself, I believe, won the Pulitzer Prize. Is that right?
That's right.
Yep. Amazing. What is the best part of your job?
As a lighting designer, you always bring something, I think, to the table that it changes everything, everyone's perception of space, color, mood, all of that, that everything is a sketch. And you start with lighting, start to bring painted with light or add something to it, depth or flatten it out. I just feel like, yeah, lighting can change the perception of everything. Especially when I work with first time with, other collaborators, I tell them that lighting designer is the second thing that I do. I really want to be part of a collaborative process. So count on me as a collaborator because I believe in that, share creativity together. It doesn't have to come from set designer or other designer. Or someone at some point can bring something to the table, can change the concept.
It really seems like you have a very big picture view. You're very collaborative with your design. You have a level of understanding for your projects that really gives you a unique design and skill set that you can apply. I completely understand why you've already received several Obie Awards and have made your Broadway debut. And I expect many, many shows to come. And I look forward to hearing more about
Thank you.
those.
You're so kind.
Absolutely. So let's talk about the tech, because that's what we're into at City
Yeah.
Theatrical. In general, do you have any challenges of tech that you're facing on a day-to-day basis that you would like to see solved with some good new gear in the future?
I think we are getting there. The technology is moving so fast, and so many amazing companies are working on solving issues. But I think something that sometimes we're still facing, I would say, especially with LED technology, is the color. I'm a big pro LED. I use LED all the time because I think the amount of work and potential that an LED source can give us is so big that I always go for that. But I understand why some other generations are hesitant in using LEDs more and more. So I think color is one of the things that sometimes you feel like, especially in moving lights, you feel like, you really need to work hard to get a very specific color. And same this show, it's not a colorful show. It's just the range goes between just color temperature from 1800 to like 7,000, 8,000. But we spend long hours just to pick something that is appropriate for the scene, but also it doesn't look on actor's face. It doesn't look weird on set. So definitely color is something that I look forward for more innovation and improvement along the way.
Sounds great. So LED all the way for the future and better control over color and dimming curves sounds like it's the kind of
Dimming curve,
technology that
exactly,
you're looking for.
exactly.
Yep.
Yeah, and wireless. Now we do a lot. Wireless technology is a thing that City Theatrical is a pioneer in that. But I always think about you have one candle, and this, for whatever reason, we are not allowed to have open flame, especially in United States theater scene, and like how to control something very small that you can fit everything in a tiny container. That always I look for like the tiniest wireless control that you can find on the market.
What was your experience like using City Theatrical beam control accessories like our top hats or hardware like safer sidearms?
They're always lifesavers. You don't notice until you put a top hat in front of a light and change everything. So I'm always a big fan, especially smaller ones, like you can put on 50-degree or 36 degrees that it doesn't cut out too much of the light, but still gives you that clean look of the fixture. And of course, safer sidearm, but it's really, especially for moving lights, they move all the time. And so you have to have a very secure position. I'm always big fan of, even when I'm using wash units, the louver or top hat for auras, I always ask for them in the plot because they make such a big difference.
Well, I'm so happy to hear you say that. I'm so glad that you're liking our beam control and hardware stuff and it's doing its job and it's helping to create the experience, the design that you're going for. What do you see for the future of lighting?
I think every artist, they are publicly or privately asking the question, is AI going to take my job at some point? And I think it's one of the things that, I think about it, that I'm sure there's a level of precision that probably AI technology at least is not there to execute it in lighting world. But when it comes to design, when it comes to look, you can get inspired by image generating tools and look at things. That's part of the thing that I think about it, that how I'm actually curious and I'm interested. I'm not against it. I'm just curious how much that technology can improve to create something that we look at and say, oh, is it on stage? Is it a lighting designer behind it? Or no, they just have a technology can that create a show with some gears overhead. I'm curious for the future of lighting for entertainment in next, I don't know, 10 years or something like that. The other thing that, we see a lot of the film technology is improving every day. And when I see the behind the set films of movies that you see that, oh my God, they're not doing anything real. Everything is just post production. What I'm really interested to see how lighting can change the live storytelling, that we are not cheating. We are creating everything live in front of audience versus a film production that everything can be fixed in post. So that's really exciting how much we can be perfect in live storytelling.
I agree. And I love that you have both the film and the live theater experience with both lighting and directorial work. You're really thinking about this 360 degrees. I look forward to seeing what happens in the future. I agree. It's very exciting.
Very exciting.
While we're talking about the future, any future projects?
I have a couple of shows that are coming up very soon, right after English, and I'm very excited about all of them. But one of them I'm really looking forward to that is Eurydice at the Signature Theater by Sarah Rule. It's a revival of the original production. It was brilliant. I wasn't in the stage when it happened, so it's really interesting dynamic. I've worked with Les and some of the collaborators in that show, but I'm really looking forward to be in that room. A show that we're remounting next week. I've done it twice before. It's called Still, going up at the Sheen Center. Really looking forward to it.
Are there any folks out there that you want to shout out, mentors, anybody who's kind of helped along the way?
100%. I'm grateful for my mentors at New York University, ML Geiger, Alan Lee Hughes, Robert Reza. Those were my three mentors in grad school, and I've learned so much from them. I'm always grateful for their support. Even now that I've graduated like 7 years ago, we're still, like friends. We're in touch. They always checking on me, making sure that I'm doing good. Even for this, before we started this Broadway prep, they both very kind and supportive and generous. We chatted. They're offering help and support however they could to help me to be as prepared as possible for the process. As a theater collaborator, it's always fun when you work with people right? Because you already understand each other, how to talk to each other, how to collaborate with each other. But I'm always excited to work with new people because building that trust takes time. But I'm always grateful when someone says, okay, let's do this. Let's trust each other. Let's trust each other's vision and create something together. So when that initial spark happens between two persons to build that trust, it makes me very, very excited.
Agree. Well, Reza, thank you so much for being with us today. We're so excited about your work on English. Can't wait to see it. Thank you for sharing all the details and some of the inspirations behind your work.
Yeah, thank you so much for giving this platform for early career designers on Broadway. We always appreciate that. And I always check those emails, who is coming up and what new technology is coming up from City Theatrical. So thank you for
Well,
you.
thank you for listening. I appreciate it. Have a wonderful day, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you for listening to this episode of QolorTOPIX Light Conversations podcast series. Please join us next time for another exciting conversation with one of our customers or collaborators. Have a great day.